Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another chamber check-in episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. Today, we get to learn about an organization that assists local highway jurisdictions utilize their resources for maintenance and construction of Idaho's local highways. The organization is called LHTAC, and I have the administrator with us today, Layla Krall. I'm going to bring her on screen. Hi, Layla.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, thanks for taking some time to help me understand and share what LTAC's all about. We were talking before a little bit about the history of this program was to really check in with our members during COVID, and now it's really turned into something that shares our members' stories, their products, services, but most importantly, the people. So let's start with you, Layla. Tell us a little bit about you, your background and history of work that led you into this organization.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So history, I grew up in a small town in North Idaho, Troy, 11 miles east of Moscow, and definitely had the skill set and bug, I guess, for the math and sciences. So I studied civil engineering at Boise State and got my degree in civil engineering, worked throughout college at different firms in the Valley, and definitely knew I was in the right field and industry. Worked private consulting for about 10 years before coming to LTAC, Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, and started as a staff engineer in the safety program, and over time took over the management of a couple different programs that we offer, and eventually became the administrator about 4 years ago now.
Wow, Idaho girl, BSU grad.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay, for those that don't know what LTAC is, maybe start with why, when, how it all started. Take us back.
Great. Yeah, in the 90s, in the 90s and before, when federal dollars from federal highway dollars were spent in Idaho on the local system, a lot of those projects didn't make it to fruition. They didn't make it to construction. A lot of that had to do with not having a local advocate, whether in the community or in the agency delivering the project. So ITD. ITD is very open. Their responsibility is primarily state highways. And so it made sense that the local projects weren't their top priority. The local highway jurisdictions in the state, 287 of them, made up of cities, counties, and highway districts. The associations for those three work together to advocate for the creation of LTAC. It was started in 1994, legislatively created by the legislature to provide technical assistance to all 287 of those local highway jurisdictions. Back in the 90s, that's primarily what we did, just technical assistance. Most of the local jurisdictions didn't have an engineer on staff, and still today, that's the case. If you get outside of the metro areas, very few of those local jurisdictions have an engineer on staff. So we help bridge that gap, just helping provide whatever assistance it is that they needed for their transportation system. We wrote manuals, would go out to the local agencies and provide that resource to them. They had some questions on maintenance or chip sealing a road. We would help provide those resources to them. Over time, we started assisting more with the federal aid delivery of local projects. So first, as just a resource to the local agency. Slowly, we started managing projects for ITD, for the Idaho Transportation Department. Eventually, we assumed the responsibility of a number of programs, local programs, so federally funded programs that go to local roads. So now we have a stewardship agreement with ITD that says what our responsibilities are in the management and administration of a number of those programs. We manage about $65 million worth of federal funded programs a year, $65 million a year worth of federally funded programs, as well as a lot of projects that are funded by programs that we are not responsible for. So we take on the management of those local projects for the local agency. We work very closely with the local agencies during that time. So they are still the owner of the project. We are just here to help get that project to construction from the planning level all the way through construction. We are governed by board, a council that's made up of 3 elected city officials, 3 county commissioners, and 3 highway district commissioners, along with the directors of each of the associations that act as ex officio members. So we meet at least quarterly. Very often it's more than quarterly, depending on what other programs we have going on. And we report directly to the House and Senate transportation committees. We do not report to ITD. We are not under ITD, and we also are unique in the fact that we're not, part of the governor's staff or governor's agencies.
Well, I can't imagine being a highway district, a local highway district employee, trying to juggle all the projects in their area with maybe 1 or 2 employees. Right. And I was looking at your employee list from LHTAC, and I saw years of experience. Maybe shout out some of your team members and how that's impactful.
Yeah, great. We do have an incredible team, small but mighty. So we have 25 people. We work across the state. And again, we deliver the federal programs, but we also deliver some state programs as well, including the Leading Idaho Local Bridge program, which I'm happy to talk about in a minute. So we have staff with varying backgrounds and expertise, which really helps make us that strong organization that can help local agencies. Kevin Kuther is our design manager. He's got probably close to 20 years experience now and has worked for a number of consulting firms delivering large projects for them, and has a lot of traffic experience. So it's really helpful to have him. We have Megan Kautz. She's our construction manager. She is a resident engineer on a lot of our projects and then manages the construction team. We act as resident engineers on all those federal aid projects, which is really the ownership type role on a project like that. She had worked for ITD for a number of years, managing projects for them before coming to work for us. Ken Konovnik is our deputy administrator. He has a planning background, so he's the one person who has that level of expertise and is able to help provide that resource to the local agencies across the state. So that's our management team, along with Mike Cram, our administrative manager. Again, probably 25, 30 years of experience working in the financial arena, managing programs, financial programs, et cetera.
I love it. And we see Scott Wood every once in a while.
Yeah.
He comes up. Anyway, you have such a great team. And you came into our transportation committee meeting and gave an overview of kind of what we're talking about today, the history of the program, what you do and how you impact the state of Idaho. For me, who lives in the north end, right? We're like, I want a sidewalk, right? And I love a wider lane, right? But tell me a little bit about, and help share a little bit about some of the programs and projects that we would be familiar with.
Great. So maybe to back up a tiny bit with that question is, first, here in the Valley, in the Boise metro area, we are ACHD, right? So ACHD owns and maintains all of the roads within Ada County. They are unique in that they own the roads within the city and outside of the city. ACHD, most of ACHD in the Boise metro area is considered a transportation management area, a TMA. So they actually receive their federal funds direct. We do not administer very many federally funded projects for ACHD. However, there have been examples. We helped the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, helped fund the Greenbelt adjustments or changes that are near veterans. I believe there's like a ramp that comes up on veterans. So that was one of our projects that we did help fund. A couple other TAP projects across the valley, across Boise. Outside of Boise, the Eagle Ped Bridge over the river near Bardney, that was a federally funded TAP project as well, along with some state funds from local funds from Eagle. So that was a really big project that we administered through our program. The Leading Idaho Local Bridge program that I mentioned a minute ago is a state funded program. The governor requested $200 million during the 2022 session to help with the replacement and repairs of locally owned bridges in poor or posted condition. There's about 2,475 locally owned bridges, and at the time, 400 of those were poor condition or posted with load restrictions. So that was our targeted list when we started the program. We have allocated about $350 million so far to 221 bridges across the state, and recently opened up the application process again to accept more bridges into the program. We received 95 applications for the about $200 million we have left in the program. We ended up with $564 million over 3 years. That's how much the legislature dedicated to the program. Yesterday, our council approved accepting the Eckhart Bridge in East Boise into the program. So a project or a bridge that's gotten a lot of attention the last week when ACHD voted to close it for the safety of the community. The council did vote to accept that into the program and approved it for immediate funding. So we are working with ACHD right now to move forward with design of that project and really hope to accelerate design to get to construction. So it's a big project in the area that people may be familiar with.
Absolutely. Wow, that's incredible. I can't believe 2,400 needed projects or submitted, and you only have a certain amount. Yeah, that was a mind-boggling number that you talked about in that committee. There was another one, maybe road projects across the state. What was that number? I forget.
Probably quoted the total number of active projects that we have at LHTAC. So federally funded active projects right now that we are administering on behalf of local agencies, we're in the neighborhood of 120 federally funded active projects across the state. So that doesn't include the 221 bridge projects that I just, locally funded bridge projects that I just mentioned. Federal projects, as people can imagine, as you probably know, take a little bit longer. There's a lot more oversight on them and a lot more requirements. So we take the administration of those federally funded projects very seriously. We ensure that all of the steps and processes are followed to protect the local agency from needing to pay back funds. If a step is skipped, if a process isn't followed, that item and potentially the rest of the project could become what they call non-participating, meaning the federal government will not participate in that part of the project. And at that point, the local agency would be responsible for that. So we take the administration of those 120 federally funded projects very seriously. And again, those were projects across the entire state, including here in the Valley. Projects of all sizes, like TAP projects, those sidewalk projects are on the smaller end, usually about $500,000 or so dollars. Some of our larger projects, we have the old Highway 30 bridge in Canyon County right now. That's about $22 million.
Wow.
So projects of all sizes in that bucket, in that 120 active projects.
Incredible. I don't even know how you even rank and sort these things by importance and cost. And I would imagine those higher elevation areas need a little bit more attention because those roads need it as well. But thanks for helping me share a little bit about the breadth and scope that you all deal with. That's a lot for a small staff, like you meant, small but mighty. You mentioned a little bit about what agencies you partner with, and you gave a report to the Chamber's Transportation Committee. We talked a little bit about the projects and past projects that folks will recognize. What else would you educate the public on while we have you today?
We do offer a few other services. So I'll start with that. We offer a training program for local highway jurisdiction employees. So employees of cities, counties, highway districts, that's our target audience. And those classes cover a wide variety of topics. We have safety courses, construction and maintenance courses, and professional development courses, but really aimed at that level of student, the employees of the local agencies across the state. We recognize the employees as they come through the program with a Road Scholar or Road Master Award, and just give that opportunity to the employee to recognize them in front of their elected body, their bosses. We also developed a leadership program a few years ago at the request of some local agencies that recognized they were hitting that level where everyone's starting to retire, and they were losing a lot of that leadership in the organization. So they said, we want help developing our next generation of leaders in our agencies, in our Buell Highway District or Notice Parma Highway District. So we developed a leadership program for those people as well that we offer through LHTAC. The technical assistance piece is a big one. We also help advocate for local jurisdictions in partnership, I guess, with the associations, the 3 local associations. So I do a lot of educating at the Capitol on the needs of local agencies or programs that we're currently offering or administering, so that there's an understanding of the limitations that the local agencies have in completing projects. Everyone's very quick to point out all the projects that need to be completed, but nobody really wants to take on the burden of the taxing cost to get those projects done. So it is helpful at the Capitol to let the legislators know that with extra general funds, for example, that we've had in the past when we were in those surplus years, redirecting those to transportation projects or infrastructure projects is a version of tax savings, because if not for those funds, the local agency may have to raise their levy rate or taxing rate to complete projects of that size or of those importance.
So since 1994, when LTAC was spawned, and now we're almost 30 years, 31 years later.
Yep.
And the growth of the state of Idaho, I don't even know what the factor is there, but I can't imagine you could be any more relevant than you are right now.
We think so. We see the service we provide and the need for an agency like ours across the state. The advocacy I just mentioned, helping right now, we're spending a lot of time and effort helping local agencies apply for those federal competitive grants that are part of the new IIJA, not so new anymore, but the IIJA infrastructure bill. So helping local agencies that without our services would not be able to do the lift of a federal application without spending a lot of money, $30,000, $40,000. We're able to provide that service and help these communities that are dealing with rapid growth secure funding through other means besides just, again, taxing or through our programs. Our programs, as you can imagine, competitive. We do applications to award projects. So I joke, I don't select any projects. I don't get to decide what's most important in the state. It is an application by the local agency, and then they're scored by members of our council and staff. And that is how projects are selected and entered into the federal program. Always more needs than what we have available for funding. So I can help share that story with members of the community, again, legislature, even neighboring communities, to help understand what the needs are next door. Helps everyone have a broader understanding of the transportation network and how all the pieces work together.
I love it. Well, thanks for your leadership, Layla, and your whole team. We appreciate all that you do. And hey, I want everybody to just stay tuned for next week as we get to check in with a longtime member, the Lotus Radio and Digital Company. And I'll have Senior Account Manager with me, Kirsten Ora. Layla, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.